welcome back, Ollie. Good to see you again. I thought this time we might take an approach that looks at real estate agents, the salespeople, and we'll look from your side looking in. So I'll try and stay silent on this one, and we'll do a bit of a spectrum on what do you like about agents, what don't you like, and then what when you're a vendor, when you're a buyer, what would you like to see them improve? So how's that sound? We happy to do that?
I'll do anything you like.
We just won't mention the war. So let's go back to the top. We'll go back to the top. Real estate agents. What sort of things do they do that annoy you? Or annoy consumers?
One of the things that annoy the heck out of me and annoy a lot of other people is that when you ask them what is the price expectation for a particular house, they turn themselves into knots. Spirals and sweat and do anything but even mention what the price might be.
Oh, the agent's going to be looking at me on this one. Yep.
It is. It's the most irritating thing. A person comes to a house and they're looking at for the intention of buying something, and the first question they ask is, what's the price expectation? And the agent goes into paroxysms and has a fit and just doesn't want to say. Or said an amount which makes no sense. It's from 500,000 to 10 million or something, and it doesn't.
Do you think when they tell you a price? What do you think when they tell you a price? And that's a hard question because you've got to sort of roll back and go to an experience. But so the agent gives you a price. What are your thoughts around that normally?
Well, usually 9 times out of 10 people go cold and disappear because the price range is way above them. This is the point I made before, is that a price expectation or a suggested price should be on the advertisements. We discussed that in an earlier time, so people don't get embarrassed. Now, I've lost the plot. What are you saying to me?
So the agent gives you a price, and then your immediate answer is 9 times out of 10, then the buyer goes cold. They go, geez, that's too high. That's crazy.
Well, often they do go too high. Or they just nod quietly and go through the motions of pulling open drawers and then getting out of the place as fast as they can. And giving an answer that just says, we don't know yet. They've had weeks preparing the thing. They have a very good idea.
Who do you reckon's got the best idea? Who is more accurate on the market value of a property? A vendor, an agent, or a buyer?
None of those.
Okay.
The right only way to get a true valuation on a property is to use a registered valuer.
Beautiful. Love it.
That's right, because everybody thinks their place is worth more than it really is. Even the agents.
Every vendor?
Every vendor,
every agent?
Every buyer thinks it's worth 100 million % less than what they're asking. And the agent is all over the place trying to avoid giving an answer. And so getting back to that point, we'll discuss this later. I would use valuers, and we'll discuss that in full later.
Yep. You know what, I agree 100%. And little heads up, when I retire, I'll be about your age, I think. When I retire from real estate.
I see the shock treatment worked on your shock treatment worked on your hair again, yes.
Must be the product. There's no product in here, just a towel. Just dry it with a towel. Puffs up like a mop. When I retire, I'm going to go public and say, well, what a nonsense CMAs are and appraisals. The agents are guessing, and it's skewed because the agent knows if they give them a real low price, you don't get the job.
Yeah.
And if you give them a high price, even if it's ridiculous, within reason, the vendor goes, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's have a crack. Well, so, I love the idea of valuers.
Well, I think sellers, not the buyers, sellers should get a valuation done.
Beautiful. Love it.
Should have a market appraisal done on their property prior to selling.
Yep.
Because I said before, every seller thinks their place is worth more than it really is. And this valuation will give a bit of a shock, and they can decide whether they want to sell or not. Now, you can have 2 types of valuation. You can have a market valuation where a value comes along and gives you a market estimate a page long or something like that. You have to pay for it. Or you can get a proper registered valuation accepted to banks or for them, which is pages long and goes into detail of how the size of the building, the size of the land and the quality and everything else and so forth, and does an estimation per square metre and so on. And you get an answer at the bottom, and that costs perhaps thousands depending on the value, but there's a lot of work in it. And I wouldn't buy a dog kennel without getting a valuer.
Love it.
I've always used valuers, and you can argue with a valuer. He can come to you with a valuation verbally. And you pay for that. And, and you can argue with the valuer and say, look, I think you got this wrong. And he may tweak it
Yep.
A little bit, but not much. So my recommendation to anybody and everybody is to get a valuation if you're selling. That's the seller. We haven't even talked about the buyer yet. Do you want
Let's stay on the seller. I like that. Wouldn't the industry be better? The seller gets a valuation done. The valuer doesn't have a vested interest in it. It's dead set honest. The agent's got a vested interest. They're trying to get the job. Yep. And they've got the tension around being honest. Pulling them in possibly two different directions. That's a reality, whether Wellington thinks it or not. But if the vendor gets a valuation, then the vendor can go, okay, off that valuation, they go, tell you what, not worth it, we won't go to market. They don't need to talk to an agent. If the valuation, they like it, then maybe they go to agents, they put it on the table and say, this is what it's worth.
And
how are you going to get this or better for me?
Well, firstly, valuers, when they put it on paper, they can be sued for getting it seriously wrong. But more important, I think a seller, when they get the valuation, should show it to prospective buyers and say, this was done for me.
Yep.
You can go to the same valuer and get it readdressed to you if you want to. You can ignore it, whatever you like. You can have a copy, walk away and look at it. It takes all the guesswork out of it. I used to do that when I was decades ago when I was selling that stuff I did up. I got valuations together, building reports together, schools and buses and everything nearby, engineers reports, different required. Put a little folder together, and never mind all this glossy stuff, never mind all this words, and gave it to buyers and said, look, here's the whole story.
Perfect.
Take it or leave it.
Perfect.
And instead of them scratching their heads and worrying about things, they had the whole lot there. And I don't know why that can't be done today.
Love it. It should be done. Vendor does valuation. Vendor goes to agent, goes 3 agents. Here you go. Here's the valuation. It's worth this. Tell me how you're going to get that or better. And then they actually explain method of sale and how they're going to do things. Not this nonsense of they're trying to guess a price and get the vendor to smile and sign the agency.
Especially in times like now when prices are a bit rocky.
Yep.
Put it mildly.
On the rocks.
Yeah. Well, most valuers, I would think, I haven't seen a recent one, but most valuers, I would think, are putting a caveat at the bottom of their valuation and saying this is only good for 30 days or maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 seconds. Yep. Come back in 30 days and we'll do another one.
Valuers I've been talking to clearly have some really good information there and background knowledge about where the market's trending and why it's trending that way. Okay, love that. Okay, what else about, probably only one thing, that's probably the only thing annoys about agents, you probably love them. Anything else about agents that annoys you?
Yes, sometimes not all agents are good. Many of them are very good. Some of them are hopeless. For instance, you go and look at a property and you're mildly interested in it and they don't get back to you. They don't get back to you to see if you're interested. Or they overdo it and come back to you. They're just as bad.
Yep.
But they don't come back to you or you ask a question and you never hear from them again. Which is very annoying. That happens more often than you think.
Wow.
Yeah. And what in particular, I'm helping somebody, I have been helping somebody looking for a place, and they go and look at a place, they give their name and email address and phone number to the agent. They never hear from this person again. Yet they know they're looking. And other properties come up, and these agents have disappeared. They never come back and do their homework and say, look, I've got another property, and here's another one, here's another one. They just go silent. It's extraordinary. They've got a buyer, in this case they've got a cash buyer, that I'm thinking of, cash buyer, and they never hear from some of the agents they've been in touch with.
Funny, isn't it?
It's only gone.
Yeah, yep. It's a lazy industry. I look at that from the inside. It's very much listing focused, vendor focused. So and there's a lot of compliance and a lot of work around a listing now. So an agent actually gets them, as you would say, tied up in knots on a property. It's never ending paperwork. For them to break away from that and get out with a buyer and show a buyer around, they tend to run out of time, but they also focus on their own listings. When I had multiple offices, if you had a listing in the office and somebody else sold it, normally it would be from the same office. Not even the next office 5 minutes up the road. They didn't see their ones from here, even if we're in the same group. And if you're in the office, it's typically the person who lists it will sell it. But the really good agents, I can think of one now, do allocate that time to buyers and give buyers a great service. And that's a real difference in the market. It seems crazy, but that is a real difference.
Well, there should be more buyers agents. You see them on TV overseas. They actually work with buyers. But people don't want to share the commission half the time. But there should be a real big pool of buyers agents. I don't see too many of that.
Like it.
Don't see me. And you want to interrupt me, or shall I interrupt you?
No, you interrupt me, and then I'll go silent, and I'll just stare lovingly. Keep going. Have you forgotten what you were going to say?
No, I've forgotten what I say. You overwhelm me. So valuations are also used by buyers. That's commonly thought. Yeah? And if you're looking at a property, you should take a serious think about getting a valuation for that property you're looking at. Now, again, if you know your valuer well, or you get to know him, you can have in my day, you used to be able to get a curbside valuation, which is just to ring up my valuer and he'd just tell me over the phone, do some basic numbers. But assuming you can't get that, you can get a market valuation too, which will cost you, well, if you're serious about a property, why not? But if you have to get a mortgage, a sort of casual valuation won't do. The bank will want a proper valuation done. It's quite a business. And bear in mind, not all valuers are accepted by the bank.
True.
You better find out from your bank if Mr. Smith or Mrs. Jones is acceptable to the bank, because the bank requires a valuation quite different from what you might think. It's all sorts of jumbo numbers, and so you better check first if the bank will accept your valuation. Of course, you've got one property given to you if you take my advice from the vendor. So you can hand it over. You can hand it over to the other valuer, another valuer who will ignore it, pretending to ignore it, but you've done half the work for him. Anyway, don't even buy a doghouse without getting a proper
valuation.
Yeah. Don't be too smart, in this market especially.
You made a point there about looking after buyers.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts around this? The agent, I always think this is bizarre. The salesperson in the middle has a fiduciary level of responsibility to the vendor, and they have a duty of care to the buyer. Then at trying to look after both parties, and both parties have conflicting interest.
Yep.
Get more, pay less. And then you raise buyer's agent. Tell me about that. Do you see that the agent sitting in there, it's a bit of a nonsense looking after both ends of the transaction? Do you favour more the buyer's agent?
I think the buyer's agent may be a better way to do things, and we don't see too many of them. But if you can employ an agent to look for a house for you, it saves a lot of legwork. And you give them the parameters in which you are working and the amount of money you can afford, and they can do all the homework for you and cut out all the rubbish out there, because most people are not experienced. And they go and look at a property, they don't understand some of the finer. For instance, you look at an advertisement and it says it's got so many square metres. You think, oh, that's a big site, that's wonderful. Then you find out later, after you've done all the sort of excitement bit, that half those square metres are in the driveway. It's no use to you. I was dealing with somebody the other day who got all excited about a house in the eastern suburbs, huge section. So I trottled out and have a look at it, but the section was goat country. It was steep. You couldn't do anything with it. There's a house on it, but I said, what are you going to do with this section? You have to use rope and tackle to get up to the front door. No use. So all this square metres doesn't count. And this is where CVs and council valuations get screwed up as well. But and driveways are a typical thing, showing more square metres available than really can be used. But this is how a buyer's agent can cut all that out of it and bring to you out of 20 or 30 properties up for sale, bring you the 3 or 4 that really fit your criteria.
And sift through them as they go.
And even do a semi-valuation from experience and say, look, I'm going to take you to 3 or 4 places, all of them will fit. Now, you see this on English TV a lot, and I think it's surely a good idea.
True.
Surely a good idea.
Watching that.
Don't see enough of it here.
If a buyer, so if you're a buyer and you have a look at 3 properties with 3 individual agents, there's zero consistency in it. If you're a buyer and you have a look at those 3 properties with a single agent, you're refining your search each time. Olly, I like this. I don't like that. Don't show me one of those again. What about this? And then they keep adding to the filter and getting closer to the perfect property.
Because they're experienced, and most buyers are not experienced. And they will just come to rely on this, and it's a huge help. And you want really professional agents, buyers out there. I think, well, there you go. There's a job for you.
There we go. I'll do that in my spare time. What do you like about agents? Is there anything? What do you? Not me personally, but what do you?
Oh, I think you're quite.
What do you like about agents?
I've got a pain in them. You're not too bad.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Can we get that bit? We'll just make sure we get that bit. Make sure the audio is on. Thank you.
Careful, mate. I've lost the plot. What do you say? What do I like about that? Well, when you get a good agent, the ones that are good are the ones that do follow what you want and do follow you up.
Gotcha.
And don't come and try to babble you into something and tell you that you've got to buy this as a bargain. So you do it. And produce information and facts why a property may suit you. Basically doing the buyer's agent thing, but without overloading you. And coming back with more stuff and sending you emails of stuff that's for sale suitable to you.
Yeah.
I get dozens of emails from agents. Our latest listings, you wind through them, boring, and see one that may be of use. Those are the good ones that care. And then you can. I know several agents as personal friends. They're not selling me anything. I'm not looking for anything. They're not selling me anything. But we get on to have a chat. And we meet up, have a cup of coffee, or have a chat about things. We talk about the market, exchange stories and so forth. And it's all good fun.
So you get to enjoy them. And when they're giving you that information, is your point in there that you like the ones that give you information that's more tailored to you than sort of a shotgun approach of here's all my listings and you go, why are you telling me this?
Yeah, well, it's strange. It's some of the agents really miss the market. Some of them just don't get what a buyer's looking for. A buyer's out there and they say, look, I don't want this and I like that. And the agent comes and brings all this crap out of somewhere. And they're wasting your time. They're just not focused on what you want. And they're just basically throwing anything they got at you to hope that you may happen to like it.
That something sticks.
It doesn't work like that.
Yep. I've always said we actually, as an agent, put my agent's hat on, we don't sell houses to people. People buy houses off us. So I'm not going to sell you a house you don't want. I need to find you the one you want and help you buy it.
I don't think an agent can talk anybody into anything. I think people fall in love with the place and they talk themselves into the place and the agent just smooths the way. And a person loves the place and they walk in and this is the place for me, and they just sits back and just gives them a little bit of information. Just let them hook themselves, you like. And that's the best way. And the people, it's an emotional thing. It's not just a non-emotional thing. But buyers looking for a house, it's an emotional thing, and they get all giddy about it. So just sit back and don't over-talk it.
See, that's experience talking. All the new agents think it's the logic, what script can I use, Wayne? But it's the emotion, isn't it? And getting out of the way and letting that emotion fill the void as opposed to trying to fill that up with logic.
Something simple like that, like the LED lights on the windows, or they're like the polished floors. It reminds them of Granny's place, or they're like the view because it reminds them of something else, or it's got a spare bedroom which grandma and grandpa can live on, or some small thing which everybody else overlooks. Just let the people. It's like catching fish, isn't it? You don't go diving in the water. You put the reel in, and the fish hook themselves. You just reel them in. It's as simple as that, and just let things settle.
We've been doing some work with agents on selling and the selling process, because I don't think there's a lot of actual selling training with inside real estate. And we're talking about anchors and triggers. And the anchor is that's grandma's floor, and the trigger is seeing it again in this house and remembering as a kid and you like that, and then you're into it. So
I looked at a house the other day for somebody, and it was 60, 70 years old, and it had been loved, obviously loved. And it was an emotional thing, You could see where, some little bit of wear, but not much, and you could feel somebody loved this place. I don't know about you, but you can feel it coming out of the walls, if you're looking for it. And if you've got a little bit of art in you, just a little bit, you can feel the warmth of previous people. I know, sounds weird, but you can. Otherwise,
no, you did right.
You did fish.
As an agent, when I'm selling a house that's vacant, which is empty, you can feel it. You can run all the heaters, you can do all you like, but it is lacking some energy that the house with the family in it has. So you definitely feel it. So if I can feel that as an agent, you can feel that as a buyer coming through.
I think the walls and floors absorb something from previous people. They love the place. Other people think you're nuts, but I can feel it, and a lot of other people can feel it. Yeah.
Definitely.
But valuations, we can go on about that, or what else you want to talk about?
We should get sponsored by a valuation company. Sort of, they'll like that. Let's just clarify or sort of refine on those points? So for you, what if you're a vendor, when you're selling, what could an agent do better than they normally do for you? What would be important to you?
Well, they would encourage you to get a valuation done.
Evaluation?
You're dealing with something that's hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
You don't try to do it on the cheap.
Yeah.
I mentioned the other
interesting,
day,
isn't it?
one of the things I mentioned the other day is the agent should help you with the advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Now, advertising is very important, and you, the vendor, has to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the agent should come along and gently put down in front of you what the recommendations of advertising. So many adverts in this and so many adverts there, and colour or not colour, and how many repeats and so forth. And if you can afford it, double it, because advertising pays, no question about it. And this is a bill you have to pay pretty well up front, and it costs thousands of dollars. So everybody out there thinking of selling their place, be prepared. The first bill you're going to pay is for the advertising.
Yep.
And there's an old saying which I always use, and I'll use it again, is if you want to do something and achieve something, you give yourself every chance.
Yeah.
Every chance.
Yeah, that's it.
Every chance. Don't look back after and say, if I'd only done this, I might have got somewhere. Especially in a difficult market, you want to give yourself every chance. So you can always stop the advertising along, There we are.
If the turnout's too big. I've seen vendors, sellers that they all tend to do the property up just before they sell. Mm-hmm. Yep. Whereas they should have probably done it a bit earlier and enjoyed it, but they do it up. And I've seen vendors then sit with the agent and go, we've got no money left for advertising. It's like, right, you've got a great product here, but how are we going to tell anybody now? So keep that in your budget. Do the kitchen, do the bathroom, wash it, bar.
We're talking thousands here. We're not talking
absolutely.
Not $3.06. It's what? What would you guess for a good advertising campaign without going crazy?
Well, in Auckland, $6,000 to $10,000. Well, that's what vendors are paying now. So if you're not paying that, you're under the radar compared to the next person. That's the level of competition.
You remember, folks, you've got to pay for the composition of the ad, the publishing of the ad, the billboard outside, the auctioneer's fee. Sorry about that.
Modest,
smallest fee of the lot.
Fantastic investment.
The pamphlets, brochures, and so forth. That all costs.
Yep.
And don't forget, you're selling $1 million product, if not more. So you won't do it by. And the biggest mistake people make is try to skimp on the advertising. So pawn grandma's jewellery or something, but get the money together.
Or grandma.
Oh yeah.
Grandma and the jewellery.
Move on.
And just thinking of skimping, I'll go back a point. You really got me thinking on this about the valuation. It's a multi-million-dollar transaction, typically in Auckland it is. It's a multi-million-dollar transaction, and they skimp on working out the value by getting the agent to tell them what the value is, and the agent's trying to get the job. Why would you skimp on that? It just seems nuts when you put it on the table.
An agent's not a valuer. There's all sorts of things.
Correct.
You've got to get down to serious nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
You can't rely on the CV, the council valuation.
Correct, yeah.
The council valuation is completely out of. I mean, it's something to start with, but council valuations are quite different from ordinary registered valuations. Important registered valuation. Council valuations are simply a computer exercise to work out what's sold in a certain area, do an average of the land prices, do an average of the house prices, and come up with a number. Well, people make mistakes and think if they can get the valuation down by going back to the council, they get cheaper rates. It doesn't quite work like that. What they do is they spoil the value of their property, because people do look at council valuations and do the exercise knowing that council valuations are 20% too high or 15% too high. And it's very interesting. But valuations are a tough thing, because at the moment some houses are selling for 30-40% under council valuations. I know somebody who's buying a house now where it's $1 million under council valuation or CV, and that's a serious lump.
Pretty good fun for the vendor who's paying rates on $1 million that isn't there.
Well, this doesn't quite work like that either, but that's not the point. There was an article in the media the other day where they were talking about the grandparents selling houses after they've been in them for 30, 40 years. They don't care. They only paid $3.20 for the house 50 years ago.
Pounds and tuppence? What was
3,000 pounds, shillings and pence.
Pounds, shillings and pence.
And farthings and doubles and so forth.
What about, you get all the way down to marbles?
No. forgive him, Lord. He knows not what he does. Yes. I can still add up
If my mum's listening, she'll know all of these.
I can still add pounds, shillings and pence. Don't worry. So where was I? You keep on losing me. Yes. What have I done? I've lost it. Yes. Remind me.
I've got no idea where we were before. We got to marbles and we lost the whole thing. We lost the whole thing.
Yeah, okay. It was good.
I'm relying on you to keep us on track.
Council valuations, I think.
Council valuations, thank you.
Yes. Well, I know many properties, stop laughing, boy. Know many properties which are selling so far below council valuations that they're useless. And on average, most properties in the average residential areas are selling for between 9 and 14% less than council valuations. And some of the bigger properties are selling for 30-40% under council valuation. So that's why the value is really important to give you a true picture of the place.
Yep. We may have answered this, but what if we wrap up on when you are buying, what would you like the agents to do better? And I know you've touched on a fair bit of that.
When you're buying, the agents should follow you, give you information, send you other properties what you like, not any old rubbish that they've come across, and keep in touch. Not just disappear. One viewing and
what a great point.
Yeah, it pours. I was talking the other day to somebody who's looking for a property. They went out with an agent, looked at a couple of properties. They know I mentioned before cash buyers, and they haven't heard from them. I want to repeat that. That's really a bad showing. That agent's gone home and forgotten them, and he's got a cash buyer there. It's ridiculous.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that agent's trying to chase another buyer and forgotten about the one they've already got.
That's right.
And there's no service there. So, and it should be it's a service industry, maybe less time trying to pretend being valuers and more time servicing and looking after people.
That's a part. Once a person trusts an agent, that agent's got them.
Yeah.
And they will sell them something.
Yep.
Maybe one or two agents that the person will trust, and once they trust that agent and they know they're going to show them only stuff that they really are looking for, that agent's got them and they'll get a commission out of it in the end.
There we go. That's a good place to finish. The agents heard that commission. They went, oh, their ears pricked up finally at the very end. But no, it is service, and the great agents are about service. The commission, quite funny as an aside, most can't even count, so they don't even know what the commission coming through is. Wonderful. Thanks for your time. Okay, what a great session. We stayed on track, I think, fairly well. James will tune us up.
We lost it a few times, but that's okay.
That's easy.
It's all good fun.
Wonderful. See you next time. Thank you. Thank you.